Andor has now concluded its second and final season. When the first episodes of the series released, I had actually already watched all 12 episodes and gave you my spoiler-free thoughts on season 2, but now that the world has witnessed this behemoth of a series, it's finally time to talk all things spoilers for Andor season 2. I want to talk about so much, from details of all 4 3-episode arcs, things I absolutely loved, the small gripes and nitpicks I had here and there, and just overall geek out about this final season of one of my favorite sci-fi shows of all time. Before we get into my thoughts, I want to hear all of your thoughts in the comments down below. Season 1 is pretty universally loved, and I feel like this series is the first time fans have been united after the Disney acquisition of Star Wars. All of your thoughts, feel free to talk all things spoilers in the comments down below. But let's get into it. I'm going to kind of format this by talking about all of the episodic arcs, but as we get closer to the final 3 episodes, I'll talk in super minute detail because obviously those are the most recent episodes. But starting with the debut, I think it's absolutely phenomenal. The TIE Fighter sequence is one of the best sequences in the entire series, in my opinion. But I think just generally speaking on the first 3 episodes, my favorite thing it covers is just the fact that it's talking about like the extremists, the light believers, and everything in between. It also talks about a great power dynamic. It's not necessarily a power vacuum, but more so this shift in the rebellion, right? When Cassian is trying to meet up with this one other pilot that we find out got killed by a group of rebellion people because they didn't trust him. They didn't know what was going on. They almost kill Andor himself. He has to escape. All of these things, no matter which way you format it, like to me, initially when I watched all 3 episodes, I was like, you know, this does just feel like kind of a crime thriller, like kind of a survival to an extent. And I really, really like that because when you think about it on a thematic level, when you're talking about the evolution of a rebellion, this is exactly how it goes. Like no one knows who is the leader of a rebellion because the point is that there is not a leader. It's just people coming together. And I think the first 3 episodes go through that thematic idea the best. And then getting to the second episodes, 4, 5, and 6, this is exactly where the series lost me. I've talked about this in both of my previous Andor videos. The first one where I only talked about episodes 1 through 6 in my initial social media reaction, and then the second spoiler-free review of the entire series, but that was before the whole series dropped, so I couldn't get into spoilers. I saw potential for down the road. You know, I saw where this series could go, but I just didn't think we were getting enough substance. It feels much more dialogue-driven, which I absolutely love, but to me, it did kind of feel very jarring. Like, I mean, I'm not saying the first 3 episodes weren't dialogue driven, but they were more so based in progressing where Andor, like where Cassian was and how he's transferring from season 1 to season 2. And I think honestly, it was really just that first time jump that was super jarring to me. Seeing Bix and Andor kind of living normal lives, but obviously still very much in fear. That isn't necessary. I mean, it's an interesting plot point, and I think all the time jumps really work except for the time jump between episodes 3 and 4. That's just my opinion. I think it's just because everything in this set of episodes is rooted so far away from Cassian. They're here to focus more so on, I guess, the general politics, right? It's more based in the family stuff, and I just didn't really care for those episodes. I don't really have much else spoiler thoughts on these 3 episodes just because, to me, it just feels like the most unurgent possible selection of characters, obviously outside of Bix, Cassian, and then the other main characters from season 1. Every new element, it's just not very interesting in my opinion. But getting into the second half of the series, just as I predicted, episodes 7, 8, and 9 are absolutely great. Like, we are propelled and we are doing things in this series that, you know, we've really been waiting for since, I think it was thematically we've been waiting for it since the Prison Break stuff last season, but I mean, this is obviously what we've been leading to the entirety of Andor. I mean, since we knew the conception of the plan of what this series was going to be, how he got the plans of the Death Star and stuff like that, we've been wanting what episodes 7, 8, 9, and honestly 10, 11, 12 also give us. I will say though, obviously I think 7 and 8 work in conjunction the most just because it's kind of leading to that massacre sequence, which in my opinion is really the peaking moments of this series, because when you look at the latter episodes, they obviously build to bigger things. Like, they are building to Cassian going to that place that he is in Rogue One, with this, all the stuff with Bix leaving. That all happens, like, so I absolutely just smacked the shit out of my mic. All the stuff with Bix leaving, Cassian going back to the Rebels, all of that kind of stuff. Like, it is interesting and it's very, very cool, and we build that up, but we're not building up to one big peaking action moment, and that's just not what this series is. And so I kind of feel like it kind of is very symbolic of this series, the fact that on an action level it peaks in the third set out of the 4 episodes. This series feels like more so the effects rather than an event that caused the effects. I don't know if that makes any sense. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that. But I think episode 8, which is the Massacre episode, is easily the best episode of this series just because it does feel like we are getting the most character resolutions. And I think I'm forgetting the guard's name, but it's the guard that's in the relationship with the woman that's working on the spider project. Obviously, they're mining for the stuff for the Death Star, but I'm blanking on his name. But that guy, that sequence, how he dies, like that is all phenomenal stuff. And I just didn't expect, I guess, episode 8 to be so rooted in something that is really just peaking the entire series. But I will say, 7, 8, and 9 really do prove my biggest issue with season 2 and why I think it's so different than season 1 is because I think independently a lot of these episodes work, but the arcs are just, they're very, very weak. I think episode 8, obviously peaking moment, but I just don't think they're right. There's not as much like looping going on from like say episode 7 to episode 9. You're not really getting like a character story arc, and maybe it's my problem was my expectation going in of, you know, I wanted more complete closing arcs, and they are set obviously in very different settings. Like we know that they're all, every set of 3 episodes is a year apart and stuff like that, so it does feel like time has passed, but not really. Like I'll talk more specifically about the Mon stuff, like that the Imperial lady that is part of the senator lady that's part of the rebellion. Like her stuff specifically really just annoyed me because honestly, you know, I'll just talk about it. Okay, it's in episode 9, and Cassian kind of takes her out. She rebels against the Senate. She's being brutally honest about the massacre, and the people from the Imperium are trying to find her. Cassian is killing people right in front of her, which she doesn't like, and he says, "Welcome to the rebellion," or something like that. I was so interested to see where this character was going to go. Like, how does she respond to being a part of truly being a part of the rebellion now? And they do the time jump, you know? I mean, I'm not saying episode 9 ends poorly at all. The stuff between Bix and Cassian are fucking phenomenal and really do propel this series in a way that I just could not imagine at all whatsoever. But I still do think that it shows, like, we missed so much. Like I really wanted to see so much more of that character, but the moments we did get of Mon, I did want to talk about that. That dialogue is really great. The way she shifts sides really plays out the pacing of this series perfectly. She has a quote that says, "The monster that will come for us soon enough is Emperor Palpatine." That shit sent chills down my spine. Yeah, I don't know. The first half of the series is so much more focused on like the personal aspect of her, and that's cool, but it again is my reoccurring issue with this season, not necessarily series. We focus on her so much in the beginning, in a non-interesting plot, in my opinion. Like it's the thing with her daughter and the marriage and the royal stuff, and that's just not very interesting to me. And I understand that maybe they're building that up for her to have stakes. Like, oh my God, is the Imperium going to kill this senator because now she's part of the rebellion? You know, is that going to happen? Is that the stake? I never really thought she was in danger. And then the second that she fully shifts sides, like the second she speaks out against it and the Imperium feels threatened by it, we just jump time and we never really see her again. And that's not to say she's not an interesting character, and this goes for a lot of other characters. Like Luthen, in my opinion, is also kind of a victim of this. Not really, I guess, because he gets so many minor character moments riddled throughout the series, so it all adds up. But Mon specifically, and then a lot of the Imperium characters in the first half of this series, I love their peaking moments, and you have so many questions and so much intrigue, but then you skip so much time that it kind of all falls flat. But I think it works for the most part. Just some of they spend so much time on these, in my opinion, super interesting, and I think everyone can agree on this, essential characters from season 1, but then decide to introduce some newer characters and focus on them a little more and focus on their overarching arcs between the years that we're missing, or not missing, but skipping, I guess. And it's just not as interesting. I don't really care about that kind of stuff. But they are still vital. Like these season 1 characters are still vital. They're just a little bit more shallow than I would have liked, especially in the grand scheme of, I was really excited for this season 2 because it felt like we were going to lead obviously directly into Rogue One, which is exactly what happened, and we'll talk about that in a second. I do quickly want to talk about the ending of, I believe it was episode 9, because 10, 11, 12 is the final arc. One of my favorite moments of this entire series is when Cassian is talking to Bix about how he's like, I want to leave the rebellion. Like, I just want you. I just want this. Nothing is worth more than this. literal chills, and we find out that Biggs left Cassian so that he would fight. Like, she chose the rebellion by leaving. Absolutely fun. I'm getting chills thinking about it right now. It is absolutely phenomenal stuff. I've never really felt stakes like this in this series so far in terms of the side characters. Sorry, not the series, this season. I genuinely, my biggest problem with the seasons thus far was the fact that pre-episode 7, they were spending so much time on other things that I just wasn't as interested in. And that's a personal thing. You might have been interested. You probably were interested in them. I'm a big fan of Star Wars, but by no means am I a big fan of Star Wars as in I know every name of every single planet. I know every name of every single side character and all that kind of stuff. I've seen all the movies. I watch all the shows, but I'm not invested in every single bit of the lore. So here, when they're detailing side characters, I didn't really care about that. All the separation of the world building is not really what's intriguing me. It's more so the characters that were already set up in season 1. And holy shit, like episode 9 is the perfect definition of that. Like, they are truly doing what the bread and butter of this show is. And then the final shot of the entire series, which I mentioned in my spoiler-free review, which at this point was like a month ago, like 4 or 5 weeks ago. But I'll talk about the final shot of Bix at the very end of this video. But I did want to quickly mention, after finishing this grouping of episodes 7, 8, and 9, I totally understand why the first half felt so disconnected to me. Like, I think the episode jump between 6 and 7 is good, but after episode 9 was the first time I was really like, they are cooking something with this time jump idea. Sadly, though, I think, and I still stand by this after the final 3 episodes, because the Luthen backstory episode isn't like the strongest thing ever. Not a single 3-episode arc in season 2 exceeds, in my opinion, the 3rd set of episodes in season 1, which I believe were the prison episodes. Or if they weren't the prison episodes, it's the 3 prison episodes that I'm talking about. Those are just absolutely phenomenal. I think it's because it took a shift that we didn't expect, whereas since we are jumping year by year, which I think works in the grand scheme of things. I think I've been shitting on it for literally 10 minutes here, but I think in the grand scheme of the idea, after watching the final 3 episodes, that really was the only way to tell this story, because it has to take up so much time, but you do sacrifice a lot of character work, which is something it's a hill I will die on. But getting into the final 3 episodes, the episodes that just premiered on Disney+, I've been sitting with these episodes for a while now. I actually went back because my screeners expire the day that the first couple of episodes come out. And so I finished this like a day early, sat with it, and then rewatched the final 2 episodes, because watching them back to back is a phenomenal experience. And honestly, I wish I had seen all 3 back to back to back, kind of like just one big, basically prelude to Rogue One story. Like, they literally go back to back. But initially in my notes, actually, I've written down why. And I do agree with that initial statement that I had, but I just think they rely so quickly to build up this relationship between his daughter / assistant, which is what the other characters call her. I think they just do that way too quickly, but I still think is very, very essential. And the way that these characters are built up is so perfect. It really hits. Like, the hospital stuff, especially when she has to go in and literally, like, with her own hands, kill him. Like, she can't take him out. He can't survive if she escapes with him. She just has to kill him so they can't torture him, and he can't give up information about the rebellion. That is absolutely phenomenal, and I wouldn't say it reaches the emotional highs of like the Kino stuff, but I think it definitely rivals it, and I think that for other people, it probably will hit that level. I didn't really care. It wasn't like sometimes, I guess, for example, like WandaVision is the biggest example, most common Disney Plus example. The pre-finale episode was a flashback. The fact that I'm referencing WandaVision is crazy because that show came out almost 5 years ago at this point, but a lot of fans were really mad about that, and I was really mad about it because it takes away your sense of urgency. But in doing it, when you have that time jump from episode 9 to episode 10, where it's like 1 year later, and we just had a massive massacre from the Imperium. Like, where is this all going? The momentum is so high in episodes 8 and 9. I think this was the perfect way to kind of cool it down, especially because I think if they had kept on building the tension, maybe you guys as well, I don't know if you guys expected this, but maybe we would have expected a lot more from the finale in terms of a peaking moment. But I think why the finale works so well is that it's the finale of Andor season 2 is not about some big action spectacle, but it's more so about hope. It's more so about Cassian choosing hope and Cassian actually choosing hope over giving up and trying to live this quiet life. He understands that the only way for him and the people he loves to actually live their life to any extent, not even to the fullest extent, to any extent, is for him to join the rebellion. And I think that final moment in season 2, which I'll talk about in just a second here, there's a couple of other things I have to mention beforehand. That final moment, though, is just full of so much hope. Like when Bix is looking into the sky, you genuinely feel a rush that, in my opinion, Star Wars really hasn't given me in a long time. Like even Rogue One itself, nothing has really given me that feeling of rebel hope. But nevertheless, episodes 11 and 12 is specifically what I want to talk about when it comes to the performances. I mean, every performance in this series is good. It's great, whatever. I think this series just has, like, the bar is so high and they just match it every single time. So there's nothing really specifically to say, but episodes 11 and 12 specifically, I think we have Diego Luna top tier in Star Wars performance conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is where he's really giving it to us. I don't know if this is really like Emmy level just because his character isn't based in so much emotion. You know what I mean? Like, there's a couple sequences. Like, there is a sequence in episode 9 where he is talking to Bix, and all of that is interesting. It's all fun, and I think he's able to give us he's able to fall into this character. You know what I mean? But he's not able to. This season doesn't ask him to do emotional things, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Like, there is not an emotionally peaking moment. There's not something where I'm like, yeah, this is the best thing ever, but it's still really, really great. I think every single performance is phenomenal, though. I think Bix, specifically Adria Arjona, really is cooking with something here in a way that wasn't really present in season 1. Like, obviously, she had all the PTSD stuff, and I actually talk a lot about the PTSD stuff when in my spoiler-free review, because I thought that was a pretty essential way that they propel the character dynamic between Cassian and Bix within the first half of the season, and that's really the only depth I feel like they get, since they're so focused on other characters for some reason, other aspects of the rebellion. But nevertheless, I think Bix's character becomes a different, like, physical manifestation of the thematic idea of all of these characters and what they've gone through and how they are the hope, which is literally the final frame of this entire series. So yeah, Adria Arjona really stands out, but I mean, everyone else here is absolutely phenomenal. Let's talk about this finale, though. It is perfect stuff. Like, it is exactly why Andor as a series has always worked. The series climaxing, building up to a moment that we aren't even going to see in this series specifically, obviously. It's so fucking Andor. Like it is so Andor, but it's so perfect. It understands the balance. It understands the characters. I know right out of the gate in my, I guess, initial reaction, not necessarily this video, I was getting a lot of heat in that original video for talking about how slow this show is, especially in the middle 3 episodes, and I still think in the grand scheme of things it was dilly-dallying. Like, I don't go back on that. But overall, when you look at the product of what this season, and I mean, honestly, this series has given us, it's truly a spectacle of filmmaking to behold. Like, the fact that we as the audience are able to understand that these characters are taking a risk. Like, they don't know if it's a trap. They don't know if it's real. Andor walking to this ship has so much power. It really is just a testament to how phenomenal the storytelling is in this series and the way that they're able to overlap all of these different storylines going on. All of this to say, again, I still think I won't go back on the fact that I think we were dilly-dallying for a little bit too long, and I think this could have been cut down just a little bit. At the end of it all, we saw Cassian and his K2 bot go to the Ring of Caffrine, which is obviously where he's at in the beginning of Rogue One. But the very final shot of this series, which I had quickly mentioned earlier, we find out that Bix actually had Cassian's kid. And the reason that she left was so that he could save the rebellion to create a better world for their kid. This shot was not only the best way to, like, wrap up Bix and Cassian's arc and just be like, oh, it's sweet, like, she's safe, she didn't die, whatever. It is genuinely probably one of the best endings to a show I've ever seen in my entire life. Tony Gilroy understands this, not just this world, but it feels like he really understands the characters. And I think he really understands what they stand for and how much real impact they do have. Like, think about how massive Star Wars is, and think about how many stories we've gotten in the Star Wars world. Like, I always bitch and complain about how Star Wars needs to go away from the Skywalker saga, and everything is so intertwined to the Skywalker saga. And movies-wise, I still agree with that. And I think shows-wise, they're getting better at it. Obviously, like, Obi-Wan is not a step in the right direction, but it does feel like Andor is one of the only times Star Wars has been able to stay so grand and still connect to our Skywalker saga, obviously the Death Star and stuff like that. It's able to connect to these bigger things, but somehow end on like the most personal character shot you can think of. It's phenomenal filmmaking, in my opinion. I don't know. I don't really have much else to talk about. I know this video was more so me just rambling about Andor Season 2 than it was talking about specific details and plot points. I just absolutely love this show. I adore it. It's not without its very small flaws, but I still really just love everything that they're doing here. I did already give my score in my spoiler-free review, but if you haven't seen that, I think Season 1 is a 9 out of 10, and I think Season 2 is an 8.5 out of 10. So overall, as a series, I give it a 9 out of 10 as well. That wraps up all of my thoughts on Andor and Andor Season 2, Andor in general. This show fucking rocks. Let me know what you guys thought of Andor. Full spoilers in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.